not going to tell you tonight that David Pearson was the best driver ever in NASCAR. But I am going to tell you this. He was the best driver I ever raced against. I always looked forward to racing against Pearson. Whenever I was able to beat him, it really felt something special. Looking back, it seemed pretty clear that we always brought out the best in each other. Congratulations, David, on being inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. The honor is well deserved, and it's great to see your name listed alongside mine once again.
Well, consider this when you evaluate the achievements of David Pearson. He won over 100 races. He won all those poles, including a dozen in a row up the street. But he only ran perhaps 5 what you'd call full-time seasons. So obviously, he maximized and concentrated his efforts. He was fast. He was tough. And boy, was he ever crafty. After all, he was the Silver Fox.
I'm just a plain old country boy, what you want to call it, you know. I well raised and brought up to be. Racing's been good to me, and I owe everything that I got to racing.
I started racing when I was about 17, and I bought my first car. I didn't know what to do to a car. The only thing I'd ever heard of was cut the flywheel and shave the heads.
There wasn't anybody could actually drive against him on dirt. That's how good he was.
I think he's just a kid who grew up a Mill Hill kid. Not a lot of promise, and he found something that he could do and just jumped in it with both feet immediately and never looked back.
Ray Fox, his car, number 3, driver Dave Pearson.
They ended up winning the race, World 600. Ray asked me, did I want to go to Daytona? And I ended up winning it. We went to Atlanta, and I won it. And at that time, nobody had ever won 3 big races in 1 year. So when I done that, that really just picks me right up.
Pearson's been playing it cool. He's kept the leaders in sight and kept out of trouble. That's the secret that's made him national champion.
We won 15 races in '66 when we won the championship.
A young man who is the reigning Grand National champion from
Holman Moody was a first-class operation. Pearson fit right in, you know.
We just had fun everywhere we went, you know, and especially running for the championship. We won it twice too, all went with us.
Well, you can hear that crowd in the background. It's really roaring for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I tell you, his attitude about the whole deal was he was not supposed to lose.
Sports writers like to call David Pearson the Silver Fox because a lot of times he drives just behind the leader waiting for a mistake. And when it comes, the Fox wins.
You got to think. You can't just go out there and run wide open all the time. You got to be thinking, oh, doing that race.
Superlative performance by the Silver Fox.
You don't let them know what you can do either.
A 160-mile-an-hour battle of wits and courage, and the master just of checkmate.
Well, the Silver Fox came through once again here today, showing him when it counted the most right at the end.
The only race he ever run was in the last 8 or 10 laps. And that's when the show was really put on. Because he was fresh, the car wasn't wore out, and he'd carry you up.
Here's the checkered flag out for David Pearson, and Mr. Cool does it again.
And he was Mr. Cool with those sunglasses and, you know, with a stick of gum in his mouth.
Sort of the Steve McQueen figure in the NASCAR garages.
That's him to a T. I think he loved it.
Well, I kissed him pretty good after the race, and my wife got all over me. I said, now look here, that's part of it. They want me to do that for the movie, for the picture, you know.
Well, the old folks did it again.
Well, thank you, Dave.
David Pearson didn't lead all the laps in NASCAR. He didn't lead the most laps. But in this sport, you only remember who takes a checkered flag. He knew what he had under the hood. He knew what kind of car he had. And he did whatever you have to do to win. He did that 105 times.
Here to induct David Pearson are two of his longtime associates and closest friends, including a Hall of Fame nominee. First, please welcome the longtime public relations director at Darlington Raceway and a great PR professional in our sport, Russell Branham.
Good evening. I'd like to tell you a little story about David Pearson, the best NASCAR driver that the sport has ever seen, and also the man whose inspiration on a little kid nearly 40 years ago helped lead to a career in the sport. About the time that David joined the Wood brothers, the boy, just 7, met the Silver Fox, and it marked the beginning of a journey that would personally be dear to him. For years, when David would fly to Darlington for the races, he would land at the kid's uncle's airport. The kid was always there to say hello, and David spent genuine time with the boy, putting a smile on his face that the strongest of soaps couldn't remove. David was larger than life. He had that Hollywood swagger, and he was the coolest of cool. Traveling to many races, the boy lived and breathed every lap with that red and white number 21. If something happened to David and the kid was ready, the kid was ready to leave. He could care less about seeing someone else win the race. After retirement, David won 2 Nationwide Series titles in '86 and '87 as an owner, in which his sons Larry, Ricky, and Eddie were the nucleus of the team. Unbelievably, the kid, now a young man, was hired as the team's PR rep and learned the Pearsons were good, humble, down-home people, much like his own family. And during that time, David made sure that there was never a dull moment. He was funny, passionate, blunt, in control, and had the same desire to win as he did when he was driving. The young man then went to work for Darlington Raceway, where his friendship with David grew, although the Fox almost got him fired one year. In what was supposed to be a slow, ceremonial pre-race lap in street cars, David and Cale Yarborough decided to go wide open, rocketing past the color guard, the anthem singer, and the pastor, who were just a few feet away from the track start-finish line. Asked why, David replied, "I wasn't going to let Cale outrun me. Plus, the preacher wouldn't let anything bad happen." Never tell an old race car driver to go slow. Over the last 12 years, the young man, now somewhat middle-aged, has worked with a Class Act driver in Jeff Burton, and at the same time has become very close friends with David Pearson. What he and many have learned is that David Pearson is the same man he was in his driving days and as a youngster. He never left his roots, never forgot where he grew up in that little mill village of Whitney, South Carolina. Back then, he was just David, mill worker, service station attendant, and body shop specialist. He was a self-made man who, through hard work, turned into a superstar, but he's always been the same guy at heart. He loves being at home, feeding his farm animals, goats and donkeys, just outside the shop where he now has a passion for restoring old classic cars. He still loves getting his hands greasy, just like he did when he worked on clunkers as a teenager. Lives a simple life, and that's the way that he wants it. Some of you have seen the caring side of David, donating his money and time to local churches and charities. And last year at Bristol, when David's son Larry had a horrid racing accident, the patriarch pulled the family together, showing emotion that hadn't been seen before. Although we know David as an icon, he doesn't understand what all the hoopla is about, why someone would want his autograph. That's what makes him special. He doesn't care to be in the spotlight. You won't find any of his trophies in his home. They're all stowed away in an old building on his property. His ego doesn't feed off the hardware. You know, that kid 40 years ago, he was right. David Pearson was the best. A mountain of a hero to many, including NASCAR. After all, he brought a pure, natural driving talent that hadn't been seen prior to his arrival, nor since. He set the bar, and win or lose, he handled himself with class and dignity, helping bring new national attention to the sport. He made the teams that he drove for into winners, and quite honestly, made the drivers that he competed against better. He's been an inspiration to many of us. I know all of you have a tremendous amount of respect for David, as does my 11-year-old son, Pearson, who's at home watching tonight. The Hall of Fame is for heroes. Mine enters the hall tonight. And by the way, I'm that little kid from 40 years ago. David, thanks for being my friend, and thanks for asking me to be a part of this special night. Thank you. It's now my honor to also introduce a man who helped David become that legend that he is today. Let's give a round of applause for Mr. Leonard Wood.
Good evening. I am very proud to be standing up here, and I want to thank NASCAR for what an awesome facility they got to recognize these guys. And the staff, I think, has done a wonderful job recognizing all the competitors in the past and present, and it'd certainly be worth your tour to go watch all that's in this Hall of Fame. It was a great honor to me when David called me and asked me if I would introduce him into the Hall of Fame. I told him I would be more than happy to do so. I want to congratulate all the other inductees, which are very worthy of being in here. And this next inductee is all you ever want in a race car driver. He had so much talent, takes the perfect line, knows when to back off, knows when to get on the accelerator to bring him off the corner with the most speed and carry him down the straightaway. He had such a great feel for what the car was doing. Always qualified faster than he practiced. I mean, 30 to 50 hundredths every time, every race he ever drove for us. He had more self-confidence than anybody I've ever seen. Extremely determined. Looked ahead, almost could sense danger. Race smart. Easy on the brakes. Never gave out. Always had his competitors guessing and not letting them know what to expect until it was too late. And if your car wasn't running, you better work on it because it sure wasn't the driver. Every time we ever had the car equal, we knew we had a shot at winning. No question. I've had people to come up to me and tell me, say, man, David can really get around Darlington. And I say, he gets around all of them. He don't have a bad track. I would also like to mention the fact that he had great success with car owners, especially Ray Fox, Cotton Owens, Holman Moody, and Bud Moore. My brother Glenn, my two nephews, Eddie and Lynn, who worked right by my side, and myself, had so much fun working with this guy. First race he drove for the Wood Brothers, he sat on pole, won the race, and then went on to win 6 total out of 17 that year. 1973, he won 11 out of 18 starts. 1976, he won 10 out of 22 starts, including the famous Daytona 500, plus the Triple Crown that year. He won a total of 43 races. Nice number.